On Thursday, dueling border trips from President Biden and former President Trump crystallized the different approaches. Biden was in Brownsville, which is tame in terms of crossings, versus Trump at what has been one of the hotbeds for illegals, Eagle Pass, Texas.
This is a Joe Biden invasion. This is a Biden invasion over the past 3 years. It's allowing thousands and thousands of people to come in from China, Iran, Yemen, the Congo, Syria, and a lot of other nations. Many nations are not very friendly to us. He's transported the entire columns of fighting-aged men, and they're all at a certain age, and you look at them and say, they look like warriors to me. Something's going on that's bad.
So what is going on? Joining me right now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. Senator, great to have you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Maria.
What do you think's going on at the border?
Well, it's pretty simple, Maria. Joe Biden opened up the floodgates. He implemented over 90 executive orders at the beginning of his administration that were meant to open the border. He and his Secretary of Homeland Security, they bragged about it. They said they were undoing the Trump border policies, and now 3 years later, we're living with the disaster of it. We just go back to this terrible murder of Laken Riley, who was, killed doing what, young kids just do. She was out exercising, enjoying her life, and she was brutally murdered by someone who shouldn't have been here. That person was paroled by the Biden administration. And I have to say, Maria, it's not just a radical departure from the Trump border policies. It's in some ways a radical departure from the Obama border policies. Barack Obama paroled about 5,000 illegal aliens per year. Joe Biden is paroling close to 1 million per year, including the person who brutally murdered Laken Riley. So we have a problem. It is a problem called Joe Biden. And unless we get him out of the Oval Office, we're never going to have a secure border because he doesn't have the will to do basic border enforcement.
And you know that now President Biden is blaming the Republicans for the open border and trying his hardest to blame President Trump, as many of your colleagues in the Senate demand putting Ukraine first ahead of the border. I want to get your take on what Chuck Schumer said as soon as he came out of the White House meeting this past week when discussing the deadlines on the budget. Watch this.
The meeting on Ukraine was one of the most intense I have ever encountered in my many meetings in the Oval Office. The overwhelming sentiment in that meeting is we got to do Ukraine now. And there are other issues, including border, which we should address, but not now. We said to the Speaker, get it done. I told him this is one of the moments, I said, I've been around here a long time. It's maybe 4 or 5 times that history is looking over your shoulder. And if you don't do the right thing, whatever the immediate politics are, you will regret it.
Senator, your reaction?
Well, I think it's so shameful, Maria, that you have all of these people whose job it is to look after the American people and to lead this country, but they're obsessed with Eastern Europe and with Ukraine. Look, we have terrible problems because of our border. We have the fentanyl problem, the sex trafficking problem. You have people in Ohio who take their kids to the emergency room for emergency medical care, but have to wait 6-8 hours in line because there are so many people illegally in this country who are getting put in front of the line of American citizens. This is disgraceful. And if you are a leader of this country, of the United States of America, you should be getting fired up about that. You can believe that we should support Ukraine or not Ukraine, but if you are not most focused on the problems of this country, what are you doing in Senate leadership? I just think it's so disgraceful. And by the way, Maria, credit to Mike Johnson for being the one person in that meeting who's standing there saying, we've got to put the interests of our own citizens first. I don't think we should be spending any more money on Ukraine. Maybe Mike Johnson disagrees with me, but however you come out on that issue, we've got to focus on our own citizens first, and credit to Mike Johnson for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, look, Joe Biden mentioned George Floyd this week many times. He did it obviously more than Laken Riley. We have not heard Joe Biden say anything about Laken Riley. You would think that you would want to see Laken Riley's family sitting next to Jill Biden this week at the State of the Union. But in fact, I understand she has a woman next to her who needed an abortion, didn't get the abortion, then got the abortion. That's going to be her guest at the State of the Union. But the president is expected to attack Republicans for not doing the Senate deal. You say that Senate border deal was wrong because of what it did with parole. Talk to us about that real quick before I move on.
Just a couple of quick things, Maria. First of all, the Senate border deal did nothing meaningful on parole. 5,000 people paroled during the Obama administration, over 1 million or close to 1 million during 1 year of the Biden administration. If you're not fixing that problem, you're not serious about border security. It also, and this is really important, Maria, it handed the ability to waive in people and grant them citizenship to some of the most liberal people in the immigration enforcement program, taking it away from immigration judges and giving it away to these agents who can, and literally with the stroke of a pen, make an illegal alien a permanent U.S. resident. This was a disgraceful deal. It would have made the border crisis worse. And again, Joe Biden can do all of this by himself. 90 executive orders that he could undo and bring back Trump's border security policies. He needs to do it because the country needs it.
I want to get your take on Mitch McConnell stepping down. I know that the Senate is considering who would take his place. Do you have a favorite? Who do you want to see in Mitch McConnell's spot? And by the way, condolences to Mitch McConnell's family. Angela Chow, of course, we've reported in the past, is dead. She was a very gentle woman. And now we understand that this is under criminal investigation, how she died in this car accident. Your thoughts?
Well, I haven't heard that. Of course, condolences to Mitch McConnell's family. I've had my disagreements with Mitch, but I certainly wish him the best. But I think that we have to use this leadership election to turn the page on Republican Senate leadership, Maria. You cannot have a Senate Republican leader who is far more obsessed with securing Ukraine's border than he is focused on the American border. You can't have a Senate Republican leader who seems to ooze hatred and dismay for the very people who vote most of the Republican elected leaders. Our base, I happen to think they're good people and that we should be listening to them more than we do, but you can't have another establishment politician who seems to dislike the people who actually vote for the Republican Party. So whatever we do, we need to focus on getting a Republican leader who I think is trusted by the broad majority of Republicans. That's the most important thing, and that's what's actually going to help us win elections and govern.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. Get somebody who doesn't hate the base. Senator, you've talked this week about Google, and of course you mentioned Gemini, where they were inputting all this stuff based on their own narratives and their own ideologies, which gave us the wrong information on the AI Gemini program. Do you want to see Google split up?
Absolutely, Maria. This is one of the most dangerous companies in the world. It actively solicits and forces left-wing bias down the throats of the American nation. Look, Maria, just take an example. Go into Google right now and type in, "Can a man become pregnant?" The result that Google will spit back at you is, yes, a man can become pregnant. Now, we can joke about that and say this is absurd, but what happens when our 12-year-old children are going and doing that Google search? Think about the effect this has on the presidential election when unbiased, non-committed voters are searching things about Donald Trump and also about Joe Biden right before they cast their ballots. We cannot allow a company that is in bed with some of the worst people in the world to control the flow of information and to bias it in a left-wing direction. We got to break this company up and bring back some common sense, in my view, common carrier standards so that we don't let these companies control the flow of information in our country.
I mean, do you think that's likely? Do you think that could happen, a Google breakup?
I actually think you hear growing calls, and frankly, from across the political spectrum, recognizing that Google is too big, too powerful, and they use their market power to control American politics and to control American democracy. Okay. You hear a lot of my friends on the left, Maria, say they feel like our democracy is under threat. The biggest way our democracy is under threat is you have these massive, international companies that are sort of controlling what we think, what we read, what information we consume. That's a big problem. And I actually do think that there's going to be growing momentum to rein Google in. We saw this with the release of Gemini. This is a radically left-wing company that is trying to control how we consume information. If we let that happen, we are going to get exactly what we deserve.
That's incredible about the Google search on men getting pregnant. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for your leadership, and we'll be watching your work. Thank you, sir.